Hello, and welcome to MadSchedules podcast. My name is Minerva Goree, and today we will be talking about 10 basic Microsoft Project interview questions and why they are important. As a project manager, you may ask yourself, what are the Microsoft Project interview questions important to ask to try to find the right project scheduler for your team? Or if you are a project scheduler, what Microsoft Project basics are important for your interview? The questions we're going to explore here are more for interviewing for an entry-level Microsoft Project Scheduler position. If the scheduler candidate cannot answer most of these questions, then they don't have even the most basic understanding of Microsoft Project, in my opinion. So let's start going over the 10 basic Microsoft Project questions. So let's go over number one. What type of task can you use in Microsoft Project? The Microsoft Project task types that you can use consist of four different types. These are summary task, subtask, recurring task, and milestones. So let's go over summary task. Summary tasks are tasks that summarize the information from the subtask or discrete task beneath the summary task. That means that each summary task has to have at least one or more tasks beneath it. Usually you want to have more than one task beneath it because then there's no point in having a summary task. So I would say it's more like having two or more subtasks beneath a summary task. Next, we have the subtask. A subtask, also known as task or discrete task, is a task that is part of a group of tasks that roll up to a summary task, and they have their own information. Next, we have recurring tasks. Recurring tasks are one or more tasks that are created at the same time to occur at a set interval. This can be daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, etc. So an example of a recurring task is if you have a client meeting that happens every month and you have a lot of tasks feeding into these recurring tasks. So if you choose to create a recurring task, you will get a pop-up menu where you're going to have to choose the name of your recurring task for that group, and then it's going to ask you to choose an interval of when you want to use for this task, like we said, daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly. And then it asks you how many times it's going to recur. So once you enter the information and you click OK, you will get in Microsoft Project the amount of tasks that you put for recurring tasks. So if it's 10 of them and it's monthly, then you would get one task after another 10 times that occur once a month. Lastly, you have milestones. Milestones are tasks that usually have zero duration and are used to keep track of major scheduled delivery dates or schedule goals. Microsoft lets you have milestones that are more than zero duration. There's a way that you can mark it as a milestone, but scheduling best practices says that a milestone should be more like have zero duration. So just keep that in mind. Now we move on to question number 2. What is network logic in a project schedule? The logic that goes into the actual building of the schedule network path. This is created by adding predecessors and successors to the project scheduled task. The scheduler may not answer the questions in these exact terms, but if they mention predecessors and successors in their answer, then they understand the basic concept. The network schedule always starts with a project start activity or task and has a finishing task somewhere at the end of the schedule. Network logic is very, very important in a project schedule, whether it's Microsoft Project or any other project scheduling tool. Then we go to the third question. Number 3, what is the difference between a predecessor and a successor? So let's look at the answer for this. A potential answer would be that a predecessor or predecessor task is a task that comes before the current task. The current task depends on the predecessor to start or finish. Then a successor or successor task is a task that comes after the current task. The successor task depends on the current task to start or finish. All tasks should be linked with a predecessor and a successor except the project start task and the project end task. The project start task should only have a successor. The project finish task should only have a predecessor. There are sometimes situations in a schedule where I've seen that there are no predecessors or successors, and sometimes that is acceptable. That is when we have LOE or level of effort tasks. But even those tasks, you can tie it to the end of the schedule, the finished task. There probably shouldn't be any tasks that do not have a successor other than the project start task. Now that we understand that, we can go on to the next question. Question number 4. What is a lag in a schedule? A lag in a task modifies a logical relationship that directs a delay in a successor activity or tasks. Lag should be used sparingly in a schedule. If using scheduling analysis similar to the DCMA 14-point analysis, there is a tolerance of up to 5% of subtasks with lags in a schedule. This is because adding lags within a task hide information that is not clearly visible in the schedule. Usually, it is best practices to, instead of using a lag, you can break down the task into smaller bits where you have maybe a schedule visibility task or SVT where there is no work being done, but it gives you visibility into what is going on in that part of the schedule. Now we go to question number 5. What is a lead? A lead, also known as a negative lag, modifies a logical relationship that directs an acceleration of the successor activity or task. Leads are usually frowned upon. This is because they are usually misused as an inaccurate compression or overlapping of scheduled tasks. If using scheduling analysis similar to the DCMA 14-point assessment, there is a tolerance of 0% leads in a schedule. So that means no leads are tolerated in a schedule. This is very important to know. I've gotten a lot of schedules which actually have a lot of leads, and it makes for having a big headache. So the best way is to just understand the schedule and take out those leads and make sure that the schedule makes more sense and everything is very visible. Question 6. What are the types of dependency relationships a task link may have? So the answer to this is 4 parts. You can have a finish to start or FS relationship, which is a task can start when the predecessor task has finished. You can also have a finish to finish relationship, also known as FF. A task can finish when the predecessor task has finished. Then we have a start to start relationship, also known as SS. A start can start when a task can start when the predecessor task has started. And lastly, we have start to finish, or SF. A task can finish when the predecessor task has started. Now we go on to question number 7. What type of task relationship should be used the most? So the answer is the finish to start FS relationship should be used in at least 90% of your schedule. Sometimes it makes sense to have less than 90% finish to start task relationships, but just keep in mind that this should be the most used relationship type in a schedule. Question number 8. What type of dependency relationship should never or rarely be used? The answer is the start to finish SF relationship should rarely, if ever, be used. This is because you usually can use a different relationship type to model a relationship. Question number 9. What are the constraint types in Microsoft Project? So the short answer is you can have soft and hard constraints. In Microsoft Project, you can also have deadlines that act as a soft constraint. So when you actually look into the details of what soft constraints and hard constraints consist of, then under soft constraints, you would have maybe deadlines, but you will also have ASAP, which is as soon as possible, ALAP, which is as late as possible, FNET or FNET, which is finished no earlier than, SNET or SNET, which is start no earlier than. Those are the soft constraints. Now let's take a look at the hard constraints. Hard constraints are constraints that are very inflexible. Soft constraints are a little bit more flexible, but not hard constraints. So we want to avoid hard constraints as much as possible. This consists of FNLT, which is finish no later than, SNLT, which is start no later than, MFO, which is must finish on, MSO, which is must start on. And lastly, we are on question number 10. What is the critical path? One of the answers may be that the critical path is the longest continuous sequence of tasks from the start of the project to the end of the project. If the project is active and properly statused, then the critical path is the longest continuous sequence of tasks from the status date to the end of the project. A delay to any task on the critical path should result in a corresponding delay to the project end date, therefore delaying the delivery date. So there you have it, the top 10 interview questions for an entry-level Microsoft Project Scheduler. If the project scheduler struggles to answer these basic questions, then it can be a red flag they don't understand enough about the scheduling tool. Thank you for joining me in this chat about project scheduling. See you next time.